Welcome to the Hopefulist with me, Wendy McClure. This is where we turn those nasty, negative thoughts into positive and work toward a happy, fulfilled life. Now, let's get started. Welcome to another bonus episode of the Hopefulist, where we have Charlize Thompson from A Ray of Sunshine. She is a mom, she is a life coach, and she is an entrepreneur. Welcome, Charlize.
Hi, thank you. So glad to be here.
Now, A Ray of Sunshine, that is the name of your company and brand and all of that. And you told me just something very interesting, that the reason that you named this A Ray of Sunshine is because...
Wray is my middle name.
Because it's spelled A-W-R-Y, A Ray of Sunshine.
Yes. So not quite like, in math, but pretty close. Sounds the same, right?
So it just makes me curious, from the start of your business and when you were naming it, is this something that you wanted to incorporate right away? Or were you racking your brain for a name and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. It was definitely the latter. I had no idea what I wanted to name it. It was one of those things where I was just like, I'm so stuck. And it's like the first step, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Just a picture of things to come.
Yes, exactly. So I actually did not come up with it. My fiance did. And because of just my bubbly personality and trying to make it personable. And she was like, well, your middle name's A Ray. So what about A Ray of Sunshine? I'm like, that's the one. Like,
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
The Hopefulist says bravo. Because it took me a little while to come up with my name as well.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So what you do is you help women identify their strengths and you help them turn that into a superpower. So tell me about how this process even starts.
Yes. So essentially, when I am working with clients, I really do take the time to listen to essentially what their needs are and what they feel like that they're missing. A lot of times with women, it is like life balance. They're stressed out, they're working a lot, they have kids, and really they're just trying to find that happy medium. But I find that during the process, it really is them not either being aware or just not fully tapping into what I would call a strength. So like if they're really good with organization, just kind of putting in systems in place and organizing the week and the day and having backup plans, or if it is a weakness, like not asking for help, which unfortunately a lot of women struggle with that. It's like, how can we help with that? But I really do believe everyone has strengths. It's just a matter of identifying it. And that really does come just with working with people and talking it out and honestly observing as well. If I can get the opportunity to, I take them through an assessment. It's called My Connecting Styles. And I really do refer people there to assess what kind of personality trait. It's almost like a Myers-Briggs, and that really helps identify where you fall into a category. And that's very helpful in helping them identify what kind of things that they can do and how they should approach things. If they're more analytical, if they're more an energizer, if they're more supportive, but maybe quietly assertive. So that's kind of the first step, is really just getting to know them, obviously, and what their needs are. But I really do refer everyone to that assessment, and it's free, it's online, and it really is a good starting point. I think it helps a lot with self-awareness.
Okay. Now, mention quickly the link then to
Sure.
the assessment.
Yeah. It's called My Connecting Styles, and the link is myconnectingstyles.com. And the person who came up with this assessment, his name is Stephen Laurie. And he actually wrote a book about this, and he's used in a lot of colleges and universities. And it is essentially an assessment, very quick assessment that will identify your personality type and how you can interact with other people. But I really find that it's more effective on the things that, you can improve upon as far as on how you deal with people that you may not necessarily like. So if you butt heads with a coworker, a family member, things like that, it's helpful at identifying ways that you can have better interactions with those people as well. So it's not only helpful for yourself, but it's really great at showing you how you can approach these type of people. Like I said, a driver and an analytical person, if you're wondering where, where there might be a disconnect, like in a conversation or something like that, it's really great at pointing out those type of things that maybe how to approach those situations.
I needed you about 3 years ago when I was working in radio with a partner who just was committed to misunderstanding every single thing that I said, wanted to work against me. And I really just couldn't figure out how, and we didn't make it work. We ended up getting fired because we couldn't get along. And, it was just a situation where I think I had a more dominant personality than him. And I think he really resented that. So is that something maybe off the cuff you can kind of diagnose me with, or, point me in a direction that maybe I should have been going?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, if you have a dominant personality, the way that it essentially works is when you take the assessment, it'll kind of break it up. And so the 4 types are drivers, analyticals, supportives, and energizers. And, if you're a driver, right, you're someone who kind of likes to get stuff done. You're like, you're on the money about it. But if you're a driver, you typically are most effective when you incorporate styles of like a supportive. And the assessment is really great. Like I was saying, it really breaks down how you can do that. And so that is helpful when you're interacting with someone that you're not really clicking with, and you're kind of like, why are we bumping heads? But when you incorporate styles from another type of personality, you're not changing it, but you're really just kind of more aware, sometimes even more aware than they are. But it's so helpful when you're having these interactions. And so, for example, if you were a driver and you're trying to engage someone else who may be like a supportive, you want to slow down, for instance, and ask what their perspective is, and like ask for help almost, and express appreciation, because supportives
I didn't
are ones
do that.
that
I didn't.
Yeah. And so it probably drove them crazy.
Really, really just didn't want to give them any good feedback whatsoever.
And I'm sure that drove them crazy. And so like those are the kind of things that you want to do in order to, not keep the peace, but essentially, right, like we all have to communicate. And so honestly, like if it's going to make your work situation better, your home life better, I mean, I'm kind of all about it. Like, so I love that stuff, but yeah, you definitely need to first that self-awareness, but then also like, how can I have a better interaction with this person? Especially if you have to deal with them every day.
Yes. Like I said, girl, it's 3 years too late. 3 years too late. But how long is the assessment? How long does that typically take?
Like 10 minutes. It doesn't take long, and it's online. It's free. And he actually does have a book on it as well that goes way more in depth. But it's really great because it does, like I said, it does kind of get into it. And so it's almost like it helps you identify your sweet spot. And so it does tell you, like, if you're, this style, then you connect most effectively with incorporating habits of this other style, and it breaks down each one. And so it really is, I love it. I do it with all my clients. I always refer back to it if I'm having a moment with someone and I'm just like, we're not getting where we need to.
We're not clicking right now.
Yeah. Like, is it me? Like, where can I just kind of, again, just refer back and refresh? And it's just helpful. And I feel like it's pretty spot on. So, yeah.
You were mentioning balance, and this was one of the things that I had come back to. And again, talking about me, is when I was in this situation, I refused to quit because in that mind that let him win. And it was like a dream job for me. And I was like, but it made me so miserable having to deal with him on a daily basis. And I remember thinking to myself, am I winning? Am I the one winning right now? Because I'm pretty miserable, and I know that he's pretty miserable too. So the work life started infecting my home life, because when I got home from work, the first thing I would say to my husband is, "You'll never guess what he did today."
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about balance and, how we can Is there such a thing as balance? Like, all of
No.
it really kind of just gels into the other, right? So let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't think that there is really such a thing as balance. When I think of the word balance, you kind of think of things being equal. And I just find that in life, there's really nothing that is ever like status quo, balance beam it straight. You really do need to just figure out what kind of season you're in. Like, if you're a parent of newborns, like, it's about survival at that point. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, what, like, balance? It's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm trying to get sleep. I'm trying to keep these people alive. Like, there is no
Absolutely.
balance. So I don't really think it exists per se in the sense that everything has to be the same. You're going to work 8 hours, you're going to do self-care for an hour, you're going to eat dinner for 30 minutes, like you're going to exercise for 30 minutes. It's about what works for you in the season that you're in. If you're a parent and you're trying to get things done, but you also have a full-time job, can I do 5-10 minutes, in the morning? Okay, you have a newborn? No, like you need to figure what works for you. And that really does take, honestly, dissecting your schedule. A lot of times people do want balance, that sense of peace in their schedule, but they're doing things that they honestly, frankly, don't want to do. So we need to cut that out first if we can. And they're doing things that maybe can be delegated to somebody else. If you have the resources, again, asking for help, it's so hard, but we have to do it, and we have to kind of get over those barriers of not wanting to ask for help, that self-talk of like, it shows that I'm weak and things like that, to really just get what we need. At the end of the day, it's like, how can we be a better person of ourselves, a better version of ourselves? And I don't know anyone that's gotten anywhere without asking for help. It's a
So
huge thing.
how do we combat this whole idea then of balance? Like that's what women are talking about all the time. Oh, I'm good at organization and I can multitask and I balance, and I think that, maybe you're taking it a little more literal in the sense that, yeah, we're going to work 8 hours and then there's going to be 1 hour of self-care versus, the half hour of eating. But what do we do to try and get out there that balance is not what the end goal should be?
Right. I think the first thing people need to do is review their schedule. You need to look at what you're doing every single day and really try to audit your time. So, if you do have a job and you do have a family, where is your time going? Really tracking your habits and seeing, like, what am I doing all day? Obviously, if you are working, then yeah, that's going to be a big portion of your day. But the problem is, we have to figure out what in your day are you doing? Where is your time going? And where would you like it to go? There's things that people say that they want to do, and quite frankly, they'll kind of go like, oh, I want to work out 5 days a week or something like that, for example. And yeah, that's a great goal. Like, I love that. I have that as one of my goals. But realistically, like, are you going to be able to do that? Like, where can we look in your schedule? Can you ask your spouse or partner for support here? Where is the room in the schedule? It really comes down to what you value as far as in balance. If you prioritize working out, that's very important to you. Great. Let's figure out, where are we going to put that in the schedule? Like, concretely, let's write it down. Are you going to be able to do this from home, or do you need to factor in travel time to and from the gym? Okay, so who's going to watch the kids? Like, a lot of times we think of these things, we know we need to do it. It's in our head, but it's not written anywhere. It's not followed up. It's not evaluated at the end of the week. Hey, what worked this week? Like, was I able to work out 5 days a week? Like, did this plan work for us? It worked for me, but it didn't work for you because you were late to work. Okay, well, how can we reassess this? Like, those conversations need to be had. If you're by yourself, you're doing everything by yourself. Again, you need to ask for help. How can we get some free help? Barter. Are you friends with neighbors who have kids, other friends, things like that? Really reaching out and seeking out help from your community, family, friends. Like, we do have to be able to audit our time and figure out, like, where is it going? Because we have the time, but unfortunately, sometimes things do come up. And so we need to be able to, like I said, reevaluate and assess what worked that week, like what did not work, because we don't need to do that again if it's not reaching our goals.
Yeah. And I often, I talk about this in the podcast a lot. Let's not be going from 0 to 50 or 0 to
Yes.
100. If you're not working out at all, I would advise against making 5 days a week a new goal.
Absolutely.
We want to ease into things. And if we make it too hard, if we make it too difficult, we're going to just quit. So I always say, it's better slow and steady than fast and failure.
Exactly.
And, it really all goes back to this as well. If there's something that's really important to you, you will find a way. If it's not important to you, you will find an excuse.
Exactly. Love that quote. It's one of my favorite quotes.
And so, yeah, that's when you have to figure out what your real priorities are. I mean, and if you,
Exactly.
and I'm just trampling all over your interview here, but if you really don't want to work out, then you probably should get back into a why you want to work out. What are the reasons behind the end result? Let's say you want to be healthy
Absolutely.
for your kids and then for the grandkids and then all of that kind of stuff. So if you can figure out your why behind it, that hopefully will give you the
Yes.
motivation to actually do the workout, starting at maybe 2 walks a week, 3 walks a week, what have you.
Exactly. Absolutely. And the great thing about having a coach is that they can keep you accountable, right? Because, you want to be able to, yeah, start those things and make progress on what you say is important to you. And that's great if that is. But like you were saying, you got to go deep. Like, why? 5, 10 layers deep,
Oh
like,
yeah.
and really figure out why is it important to you? Because sometimes I find that we just may say this is important, really only because, you know, friends, family, society says that it's supposed to be important, but it's not really important to you. So let's not do that then. Like, you don't need to do that if it's not really that important to you. And that's a thing too that I find a lot of women struggle with. It's just, almost like we do things that we feel like we have to. And that's huge. I mean, that's like 50% right there for a lot of the women that I work with.
We still tend to think too much about what other people think of us and worry
Yes.
about that. Now, I'm getting a little bit older in years, and the good news is that lessens as you get older, but I don't think it ever truly goes away. And for some people, I don't think it will ever go away. Some of it has served me well. I've struggled with my weight a lot of my life, and one of the reasons why I've been able to kind of keep it at bay for at least a little bit is because I worried too much about what people would say. But look at how much Wendy put on. Oh my gosh, she's huge.
Yeah.
That. So in that sense, it can work, but at the same time, but that's something that really was important to me, was to try and keep my weight at a certain level and doing the workouts. And I've been on and off with that kind of stuff throughout my whole life. And now, again, I'm talking about myself too much. I have completely gone off track with my train of thought. Help
That's
me out
okay.
here,
It
Charlize.
happens to me like 50 times daily. We were talking.
It's the age thing again coming up. What people think of you. Okay.
Yes.
Real
I
and
find
raw
that
here,
women
girl.
struggle with that. I know. It's okay. I'm raw with you right here. But women struggle with that. They really do. And I find if it's not a physical thing, it's a financial thing. We'll buy things that we're just looking to impress other people that we don't even really want. Like, it's all encompassing. And it really just messes with our psyche, and our self-esteem and how we just move through the world.
So, what are some of the things that we can do to try and lessen that? And obviously, this is something that takes years and years and years of practice, and there's a mindset involved. And what if
Yes.
especially if you feel like you're not enough, you don't have enough, how do we
Yes.
turn these negative feelings into something that can empower us and encourage us to do more?
Yes. So I would just, for sure, I would say, I'm a huge fan of affirmations. And I also just want to encourage your audience that, writing things down and really looking at the facts is huge, like the actual true facts of a situation. And even if it is a thought, not all thoughts are true. And I think a lot of people think because I thought that thought, that it's golden, it's 100%. And that is not the case. Not all our thoughts that we think are true. So we need to write these things down when we're feeling like we're having a moment, and really think, okay, what are the facts of the situation? Like, ask yourself, right? Okay, I did do this, right? Or, if it's a lot of like anxiety, self-talk, things like that, we really do need to ask ourselves, like, what are the actual facts of this situation right now? and then write them down, say it out loud, say it into your phone. And then once you hear it back, you see it on paper, you can begin to shift like, okay, you know what? Actually, yeah, those are the facts. Like that is maybe not that bad, or that I can handle, because you have evidence right there in front of you to speak to, like, okay, this is bad, but I can manage this. Like I can deal with that, and I really think honestly that is the first step, because our minds can play tricks on us, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. And the people that do, they're like, yeah, it is. How do I get it to stop? And unfortunately, like, it can get better. I don't think it's ever something that's never going to stop, but using tools like affirmations, saying it to yourself in the mirror, right? Doesn't have to be an hour, 30 minutes of meditation if you're into that, like I am. But those little things throughout the day will add up. Start your day with an affirmation. I am worthy of being loved, and check the facts. Check the facts. It will help you.
Charlize, I cannot tell you how much I feel like my audience hates the word affirmation. They just are like, I am not doing it. It's super corny. I am way too cool for that. But this is what I've been trying to turn it around and explain to them, that negative thoughts are just as much an affirmation as a positive thought. For example, the number one rule of the Hopefulist is never call yourself bad names. Never, never, never. Not in kidding.
Yes, I know.
Nothing.
I love that. Yes.
And just when I was getting ready to do this interview, I had brought my laptop in from the other room and I was going to plug everything in, and I was plugging in the wrong side. And automatically I'm like, okay, well, you idiot. Of course it's not going in because you're on the wrong side. Automatically, I call myself an idiot. And I'm like, okay, no. Again, that's an affirmation. I'm affirming to myself that I am an idiot. So it's the same exact thing. We just have this, we feel like we can't encourage, compliment, and empower ourselves. I think that we've been given this idea that makes us conceited or self-absorbed or cocky and arrogant. And, there's probably a line that maybe you shouldn't cross, but there is nothing wrong with pumping yourself up and telling yourself the things that you need to hear.
Yes, absolutely. And there are those phrases like talk to yourself like you would a friend, right? Or a loved one. And if that's what's going to get you started, then great, then say that to yourself. Even if you wanted to essentially envision yourself, a little blurry, there's so many things that you can do if you're in the mirror. If you don't want to do it in the mirror, that's okay too. Just closing your eyes and saying it to yourself is one way, right?
Or like sometimes
we have writing it down and reading it to yourself. There's so many other ways, like workarounds that we can do that will really make a huge impact. I know everybody I tell to, they think it's super corny. I'm like, they're powerful. And I just think you just got to get started and you'll get better like anything else with time. And it's just a matter of finding what works for you. Is it writing it down? Is it saying it in the mirror? Is it saying it into your phone as a voice memo and then hearing yourself repeat it back to you? Is it setting up an automated text message to yourself? Like there are so many ways that you can do that and receive that positive energy. It's just a matter of what works for you. And it's different for everybody. And that's why I say it's a strength, because it can work. You just have to figure out what works for you. There's nothing wrong with that.
And the interesting thing is, and this is what I wish I could get across to people the most, because this is what stood in my way for the longest time, in my lifelong pessimistic view of the world. I would never do such things as affirmations and, journaling and all that, because it was corny and I was way too cool. But the funniest part to me at this point is, now that I've embraced all of this stuff, it has so much to do with the happiness and joy that I feel every day, that I don't care how goofy, corny, uncool I look, because I am damn happy and I'm not going back. Not going back.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so with you on that. I think when you have really, felt like, okay, wow, like it's just got to be better than this. Like there's just got to be a better way. And there just has to be more to it than this, right? You know, you feel so down in the dumps. You often feel like, you know, what's wrong with me? And there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a matter of, let's figure out what can be a motivator for you, because that why is so important. And a lot of times we're trying to do things that we see works for others, and then we're wondering why, oh, well, it's not working for me, right? Like, so you're trying the strategy, but maybe it's not being, you know, it's not being implemented in a way that is helpful for you. Like, I'm a very visual person. I'm very energetic. Like, I love the outdoors. So something that is going to require me to be more inside my house is not really going to be my cup of tea, because it's like, well, can we kind of do this outside? Like, that instantly is a mood booster for me, and it uplifts me, and that fits more my personality. So again, it's about like what's effective, but tailoring it to the person. Like, we can't just, you know, assume that it's going to work for everyone, because it may not. But again, being patient with yourself in the process. I mean, just in general, I think we need to have such more compassion for ourselves.
Absolutely.
We're so hard on ourselves.
Oh my gosh,
you know,
yes.
It's just the deterrent, you know, but we
Yeah,
can
and
get
I
there.
always
I really
say,
do believe that.
go all in. Be willing to try anything and everything,
Yes,
and you will find what is going to work for you.
definitely. I 100% agree. Being open-minded will definitely get you there, and just being open to the process and just being patient with yourself. You can do those two things, you're golden.
And you're probably not as cool as you really think you are anyway, so just get over it. You know, that's what
Or you may be, but everybody else is late to the party.
I just sat back like years later and I'm like, what did I think? Why did I think I was so cool? Like, who did I think I was? What is that? Like the Fonz? You know the Fonz is?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Listen, confidence, like, we need it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But not to your detriment, which is what I did for the longest time.
Exactly.
But let's talk about a little of these negative feelings, these negative situations when we deal with people who are, let's just say it, nasty.
Yes.
So, you know, how do we go about, I guess, dissecting these? You know, the problem is when you're in a situation where somebody's being negative and rude to your face, a lot of times you don't have a moment to think about your response. You just react.
Yes.
So
yes.
how do we get to a place where we can start to take a moment and think before we just start reacting? Because when we start reacting, it's usually in a negative way.
Yes, definitely. 100%. When we're in negative situations, it is almost like an instant response, you know, and most of the time it is unpleasant. If we're in a situation that is uncomfortable or just plain rude, you know, or ignorant, things like that. And I find the first thing that you need to tell yourself that's very helpful is pause or stop, you know, envision a stop sign. Just tell yourself that, because if you just can give yourself like a couple seconds of a moment to just think it through, even if it's for seconds before you respond, as opposed to reacting to that person or situation, it will help you tremendously think about, what can I do next? What would be the appropriate response next? You know, how would the best version of myself respond in this situation? Pause, you know, like they say, walk away, but pause, just pause for a second.
Okay. And just, you know, to help, you know, them envision it better, I had a situation recently where I was playing pickleball. Are you a pickleballer?
No, I'm not.
You have
I've played
to.
it before, but
very, 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 very fun. It rules my life, in fact. But I was at pickleball and I was playing with, you know, partners with another team. And the woman that was playing was new. She'd only played a couple of times or whatever. And one of the first shots of the game, I kind of hit it out on a corner, which is, you know, kind of a higher skill level or whatever. Well, the guy that she was playing with, like, just screamed at me. Like, he's like, are you kidding me? We're trying to take it easy. And blah, blah. And I was in shock. And at first I went, really? Like, I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, really? Yeah. You can't take it easy. Like, people weren't nice to you when you started. And I was like, then I got into this defense mode where I just reacted. And I was like, hey, I'm here to play, you know? And if I really this really affected me because, getting yelled at like that is one of my triggers. I know nobody
Right.
likes to get yelled at, but
Yes.
it's a really like a traumatic experience for me. So the
Yes.
whole way home, I just kept thinking, why did I react the way that I did? Well, because he put me on the defense. And if he
Right.
wouldn't have done that, if he would have just said, hey, you know what, Wendy, do you mind trying to take it a little easier on her today? I would have been like, you know what? It was just instinct for me to hit that ball out because I saw an opportunity. I wasn't even thinking about
Right.
that. You're right. Let's, I'm going to take a step
Right.
back. But since he yelled at me the way that he
Yeah.
did, then I yelled back and then I ended up feeling terrible. And then I think he's an ass. So, I mean, like,
Right.
so if I would have just taken a few seconds, you're saying.
Yes. And who's to say that if you took those few seconds to think, just to pause and just to think, to give yourself that break, that you wouldn't have responded that way? Like, it's not a situation, like, we're not meant to be perfect. So it's not a fix for every single situation. We're human. We're going to respond and react in ways that we're like, I could have did that better. But the thing that I think I want, for situations like that, it's like an everyday situation when you're interacting with those type of people, is when you give yourself to a moment to pause. You're putting yourself first here instead of responding in a way that makes you look bad in a negative light or something like that. And that is what I think probably was really just that self-talk on the drive home of just like, man, why did I do that? Like, you're better than that. You have the skills. Like, and so it's really about that. It's giving yourself the moment. I think that's what people, maybe don't always think of it that way. They think, oh, I'm kind of letting them win, right? Like, before. And it's like, no, this is for you. Like, this is for you because you're going to be the one thinking about it, the rest of the night. And like, man, I could have going over and over. And it's like, that moment is just for you. And just ask yourself, like, okay, maybe I need to walk away. Like, what do I need to do here? Because you're going to be the one thinking about it, not him.
That's what drove me crazy. And, it's like one of those things where I wish, and as I thought about it later, I thought to myself, what I should have done is just, said, I don't respond to getting yelled at, and that's one way to go about it, and then he just looks like the idiot that's yelling instead of us both yelling back and forth. Because I think that we sometimes get stuck in thinking that it's a form of disrespect, which it is, but you're not responding to it doesn't mean that you're allowing the disrespect. In fact, you're allowing it less. I think if you just say something like that, I don't allow people to speak to me that way or something like that. That's way better than yelling back. But it takes so much for us to get into that mindset.
Yes.
We hear people yelling at us. We hear people yelling at us and we're just like, who do you think you are? But then, it's kind of like, I don't accept that behavior from you. I didn't ask for that behavior. I don't deserve that behavior. And it's as simple as that.
Right. And like you said, like, and when you do take that moment to pause, I think maybe, you would have been able to kind of come up with a phrase that would have been appropriate in that moment, in the sense to kind of disconnect yourself, because he clearly needed a moment. And it's one of those things where you're like, let's just pause here. And I think that shows more strength and courage to be able to do that, not only for the situation, because they're just going to look like an idiot, but for you, like, that's tremendous strength to just give yourself a minute to pause. And even if you don't feel like you don't have the words in that moment, walk away. Like, nobody is forcing you to stay there. You don't need to interact with someone who's not treating you right. Like, you can walk away. Like, you don't need to take that from somebody. So you can also just give yourself a minute if you want to let them know, so you're not being rude, do so, but you don't have to like sit there and take it either. And being able to pause, I think, really will give yourself a lot more options to give yourself a minute to just think about it.
Good stuff, Charlize. Good stuff. Loving this conversation.
Yes, me too.
So, tell me about all of this stuff. Where can we find you? Where are all the places that you are? Let's hook everybody up.
Yes, definitely. So I'm on Instagram at array, AWRAY _of _ sunshine. So I'm there. I'm very active there. I am on Facebook of the same name, but usually I would say I would definitely just go to Instagram. So I'm there mainly. And that's really about it. And they can obviously find me at arrayofsunshine.com. I'm there. That's my website. And definitely, as a bonus for your listeners, if they're interested in coaching, one-on-one coaching from me, they will be able to get a 15% discount. So they just need to mention this podcast in the email, and I'll definitely hook them up. So that's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like, I feel like I had a little mini therapy session, to be honest with you. So thank you for helping me work through my feelings.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. You take care. And meanwhile, thank you as well for joining us here on the Hopefulist. Now go on out there and be badass for the rest of this week. You know that I'm always cheering you on.